Hello and welcome to the show. So today we have another old versus new rivalry. This time it is between the absolutely amazing Peugeot 205 T16 and its rather younger brother, the 206 RC or GTI, depending on what part of the world you are from. So this should be a fairly interesting matchup. Both these cars are C-Class. They are very, very similar in PI.
Very similar.
I think there's about...
apart from they're 20 years apart from each other.
Yeah, there's less than 10 PI difference in them. However, they are 20 years difference in age. Now, off the line, the 205 should have been slow. You just got a poor start. On this one, the 205 has some of the worst gear ratios ever seen in a car. Ignore the little slight off that we both have here.
The thing is, that car can do off-roading, mine can't.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, we meant to film it. Well, actually, we did film this a few weeks ago, and then the replay was too laggy.
Understeer.
So there's much understeer going on back there. The replay was too laggy, so we went and redid it a couple of days ago, and we forgot how to drive the cars a little bit. So ignore that. Anyway, yes, the gear ratios in this 205 are atrocious. They are so long. I'm not sure if they took the gearbox directly from the rally car that had an awful lot more power and just expected it to work, because this thing just doesn't get off the line. It just doesn't go at all. It is a four-wheel drive car. It should launch much faster than a front-wheel drive car. It has more power than the 206, in fact. It has 200 horsepower. Not a huge amount, but still more than the 206. But it just doesn't get off the line. It's also got a rather big turbo, which probably doesn't help matters. But
that doesn't help situations.
No,
I don't think. That's the good thing about the 206. It's just a bit more modern, a bit more sophisticated if you look at it in that. And I think the front-wheel drive does help. Oh, you're going a bit. I'm going understeer. You're going oversteer.
Yeah, the 205. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I'll probably say it many more times. The 205 T16 is probably the best handling four-wheel drive car. It's huge amounts of fun to drive. You can just throw it in the corner and it will not understeer. It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, if you take too much speed into a corner, you'd have a crash, yes, but it will not understeer. It will oversteer a little bit and it will catch you out if you aren't paying attention. But it really is a very, very good handling car. The downsides are, as you can see, it isn't particularly quick. It has
that is due to your gearbox, isn't it?
A lot of it is due to the gearbox. It has more power than the 206. It's a little bit heavier, but not very much. I think it has
only about £100.
Yeah, it's only slightly.
Which isn't that much.
It's not bad for a four-wheel drive car, but it just hasn't got the acceleration, hasn't got the straight line speed. But it does have the cornering, and that is the real difficulty with the 206. Is it cannot get past because
that was the problem. The fact I think that we did it on this track, any other track or like a long track with a longer straight, the 206 would have walked away with it.
Yeah,
it's because on the straight the 206 is ridiculously quick compared to the 205.
Yeah, but the 205 has better brakes. It can stop a lot later. You will notice sometimes I can be a lot later on the brakes and still get stopped in the same amount of time, and that's what was kind of scuppering the 206's chances, really.
That was the problem, and it just understeered. It's not a bad car to drive by any means, but it's the understeer. You try and push the car, and it will just understeer wide, and you can't really do much to save it. And then you just let off the throttle, and then you'll slow down. So it sort of defeats the whole objective. You're going off-roading again.
It's a rally car. It can do off-roading. It's a bit of a cheeky pass, that one. I didn't think I had to go defensive.
I was quite happy.
Yeah, it was a good pass, actually. I can defend quite well on Forza. It's sort of, I guess, my specialty on here, which means that you were having real troubles trying to find a way past.
I was, yes.
Past the 205.
The handling of your car helped, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the downside. I mean, you see the power difference here, and you see the speed difference. By this time, I've got quite a big lead. Well, not a big lead, but quite a big margin over Alex, so I can just sort of take my normal line, but I didn't and messed it up. So yeah, that is just the downside of having a front-wheel drive car with. It's not a lot of power though. I don't know why. It's just not fantastic through the corners.
Maybe just not a fantastic chassis or something on it. Now we should probably talk about money, the cost of these cars. The 206 costs 14,000 credits. That's pretty reasonable for a for a fairly fast hot hatch. It's not bad. It's actually not a terrible car. It's not as good as some, but it's not a terrible car. The 205 costs 120,000 credits, which is...
That's a lot.
Oh, it's an awful lot. It is a very good car to drive, But value for money wise, the 205 it certainly
Not
isn't.
so good.
No, it certainly isn't. You have a very near crash
Big
there.
Jan Slapper.
How on earth did you get...
That is sort of my specialty.
Yeah, that's your specialty. How did you get a tank slapper out there?
I don't know. I don't know. I think the chassis isn't great. I'm going to be honest. The chassis is not the best. If you lift off the throttle, you'll get lift off oversteer, which then goes into transitional understeer, which makes the thing even worse to drive when you're trying to go fairly quick, and especially when you're racing, that doesn't even help either. Like that corner there, tried to do a cutback, thought yeah that'll work, and it just understeered. And if I hadn't let off, I would have just rear-ended the 205, which wouldn't have been very good.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world to drive. As I said, it's not a terrible car. There are worse. There are worse for understeer.
There are, yes,
and there are worse for lift off oversteer. But
I think that most four-wheel drive cars, to be fair.
Either way, after a 6-lap race, the 205 did take the win. It was very close. Fastest laps again, we were within a tenth of a second of each other, I think, and that went in favour of the 206. I'm fairly sure the 206 is a little bit faster, but I was defending very heavily, which is why I managed to take the win on that one. Out of the two of them, I would personally have the 205. I know it's probably not as quick as the 206, but it's so much better to drive, and I think it is a little bit of a cooler car. What about you?
It's got to be. Yeah, I'd have the 205. You couldn't. If someone gave me the keys and said, "Here's the keys," and to both cars, you'd have to pick the 205. It'd be a crime not to be honest.
Yeah,
it would be, because they're so rare and just they're brilliant cars. So it'd have to be the 205. So now, what was it? The Top Gear laps now. The Stiggy doing the laps.
Now we have to give the 206 over to the Stig. Now the 205 has been around our track, and in fact it is the slowest car that has been around our track. But that's mainly because we tend not to sort of power lap anything less than kind of B-class car. So we thought we'd give the Stig a chance to have a go with the 206. Not the most exciting car he's ever driven. I think the last car we gave him was the TVR Speed 12. That's a bit of a difference. Going from that to a 206. So yeah, we're going to see how this compares to the 205. Now, of course, this is going to be right down the bottom of our leaderboard because, as I said, there is very, very few C-Class cars have gone around here. However, it does give it a chance to have a fair comparison to the 205. As you can see, it's a fairly slow, uneventful lap, really.
It is. This is where the understeer shows a little bit.
Yeah.
The Stig didn't take out any cones though, which I was quite surprised at.
No, the cones stayed intact. It's probably because the car wasn't really going fast enough to be particularly challenging.
But this is probably the problem. Corners, and it does much understeeriness.
It is, yeah. You can see it's a little bit understeery. However, it has got significant.
That's not slow.
It's not too slow. No, I mean it's still a fairly fast for a hot hatch. It's actually very light for a modern day hot hatch. It's incredibly light, sort of 2,400 pounds. And coming up to the final corner, it's been a fairly neat and tidy and uneventful lap, and a little bit of understeer, and there we go. It is across the line for the 206. So, the lap times. Has it managed to beat the 205? Well, it did a lap time of 1:27.8, which is very impressive, actually. That puts it up sort of half a second-ish away from a Ferrari 250 Testarossa. That's
impressive.
That is fairly impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the 205 is 20 years older, so it does have a little bit of... how can we put it? It has an excuse to be a little bit slower.
Yeah. Well, I told the Stig to build a 205. Just put a race gearbox in. That's it. Just stick a race gearbox in and make the gear ratios a little bit shorter so that it was actually usable. It was still pretty bad, even with the shortened gearboxes. I had a look at the replay. It still struggles to get off the line, whatever you do with it. That did a lap time of 1:28.3. So, with a better gearbox, the 205 would stand a chance. On a shorter track, the 205 is probably the quicker. It's much better through the corners, much easier to drive, and probably more fun. But on a long track, like the Top Gear test track is, the 206 is always going to win because it has the better straight line speed and much better acceleration.
Yes.
So, yeah, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. We're going to get back to doing a few more of these old versus new rivalries. We have a few ideas of ones we would like to do. And of course, if you guys have any ideas, please do leave them in the comment section. However, until next time, goodbye.